So, welcome everybody to Talking Niagara on Monday, September 23rd. Hey, I got caught all week this week. Every day I'm
Yeah.
involved in something, Pretty amazing, eh?
You
Right.
don't look like much of a criminal to me, but oh well.
Okay, so I was
Hopefully,
reading this.
hopefully I'll get bail.
No, I got an LTB case today. So I've got the other side has given a whole bunch of evidence in Chinese.
In Chinese.
Yes. Official documents with no notarial certificate, and furthermore, they've given their own interpretation, written interpretation, without an interpreter.
Well, I guess
That's a
this is
problem.
going to be postponed though, because the judge won't accept that, obviously, and the judge will
Clearly,
probably give them time to get the
well,
documents.
we have to get it properly done by a certified translator, right?
Yes,
Anyway,
indeed.
yeah, yeah.
Obviously, that means that the court will say, "Look, I'll have to give you time to do that."
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I need to know the
So
genuine.
looks like they did it on purpose. They knew what they had to do, but I didn't know.
No,
So that delays it.
it is one of the problems when you've got self-represented parties.
Yeah,
They
they don't know the law.
they fired their legal rep, and now they're self-represented.
Oh boy, yeah.
All right. Okay, so the discovery of an artifact in Port Robinson has meant the reconstruction. Port Robinson's South Reach Bridge has put that development on hold. So the trouble is, what I hate about this, they didn't tell what the thing was. They said human artifact. What is it? Was it human bones, or is it something else? But the city, pardon me?
Go ahead.
Yeah, the city of Thorold has basically approved spending of about $230,000 of the capital asset reserve on excavation work, along with about 20,000 to bring First Nations groups in to monitor the archaeological fieldworks. And this, as I said, this came after human artifact was discovered during a burial site investigation by GHD Canada. There you go. And as I said, what's curious about it is I never know what it is. I'd like to know what it is,
Well, I'm going to put define human artifact right here.
Yeah.
Oops. If I can spell.
And that's the challenge. Of course they've got to investigate these things. It's an accepted practice anywhere you go in the world. When you find things of ancient significance, you have to investigate them.
Well, it's as simple as it sounds. Broadly defined, any object created or modified by human culture.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but
as opposed to what kind of culture?
We know what kind of culture, First Nation, but I'd like to know what it is. What precisely is it they found?
Well, I think one of the reasons here that they don't put it out there is because what happens is people then come to start to loot the site, looking for artifacts.
I suppose.
Yeah, some people like I've heard of this before when they've discovered I think when they were doing the sand pits around there, they found a bunch of arrowheads and things like that, and before the archaeologists could get it, people just swamped through it and took everything they could find.
Yeah,
as trophies, and then and it's not really just to sell them or anything like that. It's just like people want to have them.
Yeah.
you know, and if it is a rather rare artifact or something like that, there is a black market in anything archaeological because there are
Yeah.
collectors.
Oh, undoubtedly, there's a black market in it. You know, I just hope more comes out over time. I'm fascinated by these stories, right? Um, and typically, what ends up, we have 6 months of investigation about it, and then the works proceed as normal, right?
Yeah, a coworker of mine brought in a bunch of stuff that his family had found on a farm near it was on the Grand River, and it was arrowheads and grinding stones and all kinds of other things, tools and stuff like that. Some First Nation group had used years ago, and you know that it probably predated the. It was probably the Eries or the Neutral Indians that did it because it was still flint and stone. Because around about the time of the great genocide of the Beaver Wars that wiped out those people, they had just begun to get goods from the Europeans, like iron and metal and things like that. So everything in this particular site that the guy had dug up or his relatives had dug up over the years, being just farmers, they weren't looking for it. They just came across it.
Yeah, when the plow kicked something up, they picked it up.
Yeah, these were still Stone Age things. So
Yeah.
that was that's what made that important. But anyway, it's very interesting. You got to, if it's a body, it's a very, very a solemn thing because they used to take the bodies of First Nations people and then study them and all that other stuff. But the First Nations don't want that to happen anymore unless they have specific invitation to do that.
Mm.
And I do remember the archaeological evidence from around where Scarborough, where I was, and things of that kind. They could find that they could see that the people who only lived to be about 40 or 50 years old, and when they did die, they were riven with full of arthritis, top to bottom, and tooth decay and stuff. So
Yeah.
must have been a short and brutal life for the most part. But the same thing was happening in Europe at the same time when you dig up graves in Europe, particularly peasants. They don't live long, and they have
Well, the poorer they,
painful existence overall.
That's true. The poorer the people were, they wouldn't have as long, longer life. And generally speaking, the aristocracy and more important, more rich people would actually have longer lives.
Mostly because of the food.
Yeah, and it's true. It's as true today as it was back then. Because typically, when we look in our society, those that can't afford the good food tend to live shorter lives.
Yes, and yeah, it's largely to do with nutrition and things of that kind. So, but in any case, we can get into that in a long ways. But the fact of the matter is, they're not telling anybody what it is. They don't want to encourage people to go and start snooping. That's my guess. They won't tell you what an artifact is. If they say it's like bows and arrows, right, or bowls, particularly if it's some sort of ceramic bowl of some kind that has a particular kind of design on it, something like that, could be worth an enormous amount of money on the black market.
Even chips of them, right?
Yeah, but if you get something whole and it is a native design of X amount of years ago, that would be astonishing find and be very, very valuable among the collectors.
Yeah,
that's why.
That's for sure. I get it. Okay, so I wish them well with that, and obviously that'll be delay in building that bridge, but an essential one, I guess.
Yeah, it's just a fairly interesting thing. Remember, this area was populated for 15,000 years And so if somebody comes knocking at a door and saying, well, thanks for taking care of my place for the last 200 years, but I've been here 15,000 years. We'll let you use it for 200. Now get out.
So, okay, Mike Cushman basically says it also shuts down a construction site, so they hide it. Yeah, that does happen. Very much does happen. Randy West, good morning.
Hi, Randy.
Yeah. Okay,
Metaphysical Mike will be joining us tomorrow. And plus, I got to get out of here early today, too. I forgot to tell you.
Oh,
about quarter two or so.
Okay, that's okay. We'll leave where we are at that point. All right. There's some information regarding rental housing rates in Niagara, which is important. They're talking about disinflation. Is an expert, and like, what the hell do you mean by a word like that?
Disinflation. It sounds good, but that all it means is basically I read this and I say, well, it's just more or less a correction than anything else. Disinflation means it didn't go up as much as it has done. So we find rental units going up percentage wise every year and making it very, very difficult for people to get them, for one thing. But now the increases have been reduced. They were like 3.3% last year, and this year, like they're 2.1%.
Well, actually, what they're saying, okay, so here, the average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in St. Catharines dropped by 2.1% in August compared from the July average, said the monthly report from property listing rentals service rentals.ca. Compared to the same month last year, the rent was up 3%, close to the national average of 3.3%. All right. The annual St. Catharines increase was almost $50 a month at about $1,677, and this is for one-bedroom apartments. So they're basically saying that the average for one bed is $1,677. The national rate of increase was the slowest growth rate since 2021. The average prices for a two-bedroom, probably more crucial for most people, decreased in August year over year by $5.
I don't know. That's it's kind of telling. They find that there still isn't that demand for rental, of course, is going up. People are going and staying in the rental units because there isn't a whole lot of housing starts, or not enough, and not enough in the average person's wheelhouse, basically economic wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So what's happening is, although the rents may have come down, people aren't moving from the rental units or changing rental units, which means
especially
that
if you've got a 10-year-old, if you've got a unit that's where your rent is going up by the average amount over a 10-year period, that rent is not, it is fairly good compared to the, I mean, when it's gone up by the government dictated amount over the last 10 years, you're in a good state compared to many people moving into a brand new house today. Of course, you're going to stay.
And another trend is the biggest demand used to be one-bedroom units, but now the demand is starting to shift to two bedrooms, which tells me that people who are pretty much are going to have a family or have more family members are kind of resigned to the fact that it's going to be an apartment, not a house.
Yeah.
It's very clear that a segment of the population will never be able to afford a house, and that they're going to go into rental units instead. Like in this case, like the huge demand was for single room apartments, but that seems to have changed, and now the emphasis are two bedroom units. And because if you really do decide to have a family and you really are shut out of the housing market, what do? You buy, you have your family in an apartment like people in Europe did, or people in North America did years ago.
Well, in average, in Niagara Falls, the average cost for renting 1 and 2 bedroom units decreased by 1.3% per year for 1 bedroom and 5.9% per year for 2 bedroom. So the rates in Niagara Falls are slightly higher than the ones in St. Catharines.
So what it tells me is that people are settling into the fact that more and more people are settling into the fact that they will not have a house, and are accepting the fact that they'll be living their life in an apartment. And that's why the demand for two bedroom apartments has gone up. And aside from that, it's a trend. Basically, it's an indication that the economy, the standard of living for the average person has come down, and that's all I can get out of this, really, and until there's a huge amount of supply available, it's not going to change. And this goes on about poor planning by everybody involved here. They didn't see this coming. I don't know why. Not enough houses. So I don't know what to say about this, except that if the rents are leveling off and coming down, it's not disinflation. It's more like a correction, I would say.
Niagara Falls ranked 20th most expensive place to rent a 1 bedroom apartment amongst the 35 Canadian communities included in the report. St. Catharines was 28th and Hamilton was 16th. So Hamilton's more expensive than Niagara Falls, but Niagara Falls is more expensive than St. Catharines. There you go.
Yeah, you have to include the mean income of the average city. For instance, Niagara Falls' average income is lower than I think the average for Ontario. So, like, if you have a good income here, you're making a single person here, you're going to be making $63,000. 48 is the low end, and I think 63 or 69 is the high end. But the average is about 63. For family, it's $110,000 for a whole family income. So you see that would be typically 2 earners. So you see the fact that there is a very, very difficult different. There is quite a vast difference between what is affordable real estate wise and what is what the incomes are.
Yeah. Okay. So again, there's when it comes down to it, though, generally wages are lower in Niagara Falls than they are in St. Catharines. We've seen that from other studies we've reported on.
Yeah, so that and some of our ours might be skewed too, because we've had so many new people move into Niagara Falls from the GTA and so on, and of course they're the ones bringing more. They have more of an income. Obviously, they're the ones being able to buy the houses when the people here can't.
Well, that's very true as well. Yeah. Right, and noting one thing, in Niagara, there's an emphasis more on renting because of the number of new builds that are happening, and the fact that the new builds are all primarily rental based and not buys, places for sale.
Yeah, so the housing start. It says that in the article that the housing starts. There's just not enough housing starts, and it also says that people, once they're in their apartments, stay in them now.
Yeah, one of the questions I have
to me, they're resolved to not have a house, at least forever, or at least not for a long time.
Yeah. So the houses across the road from you that are just the townhouses that have gone up there that are just about ready to start renting out or whatever, are they rentals or are they purchases?
I think their purchases and some of the price tags on them were kind of high. It's taken a long time for them to get up and going, and if the rest of the starts in Niagara Falls are that slow, I mean, it's taken years for them to go up. To put a sign up, all this stuff was supposed to be ready to go a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
and it's still.
Well, I was going to say
anyone's bought them yet, tell you the
it
truth.
seems exceedingly slow to me there. I would have thought that they would have, if they had a mix of rentals and sales, it might have made that, they'd have gotten some activity in the area.
And the whole thing was built by new Canadians. I didn't really see anybody that I would have recognized on any other construction site. Like, for instance, when I was working construction.
Yeah, I get you.
You would get the odd. Everybody was, to me, like the languages they were using and who they were visually. Every one of them looked like they were new Canadian.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, Singh is basically saying that it isn't about carbon tax; it's about climate change.
Well, Singh has found out that now that he has to separate himself from the Liberals, he can no longer support the carbon tax as it is, because he's found it a firebrand of an issue. It is the symbolic issue, whether or not it's fair or not, or like take away the fact that that it's controversial, whether it's working or not, anything like that. He has found out that this is being the symbol of hate or hatred towards the current government. So what he is doing now is he's trying to separate himself from the Liberal carbon tax, and we're sort of parroting what Poilievre has done, but only in a socialist sort of way. That he doesn't want the burden to be put on the average Canadian and shift the burden for the carbon tax onto bigger polluters, which is pretty much what Poilievre is saying anyway himself. And I think he's very conscious of the fact that certain reports, economic reports, have shown that the carbon tax, or at least have indicated the carbon tax is slowing down the economy. Well, not only is it a burden on the average Canadian, but it's slowing down the economy.
And one of the things, of course, that Singh has to do, if he's going to make any advances in the next election, is got to distance himself from the Liberals anyway. And questions like carbon tax, a natural part of that, because a lot of people, whether whichever side you fall on the whole issue, carbon tax is going to be front and center in the election.
Well, yeah, and so Singh has decided to say, well, you know what? The issue here is climate change. How do we tackle climate change?
Yeah.
It's not about carbon tax. So he's pretty much saying we're talking about carbon tax all the time, and we're getting obsessed about it. And he's saying, is it the best way to go? What we want to do is fight climate change. It's easily said, of course. And the Conservatives have said the same thing. And in fact, this article has quoted Stephen Harper, the Conservative Prime Minister before Trudeau, as saying that it's one of the greatest threats to humanity. So you see the Conservatives are on board, and the Liberals and the NDP are on board. But the problem here is the Liberals have insisted that the carbon tax is the way to go. And now the NDP has said that no, not that way.
Yeah, but again, there's a difference. There's a lot of difference between the direction the NDP wish to take and the direction the Conservatives wish to take.
It's hard to say. It's hard to say because the conservatives have been pretty general about it, but basically what they're going to do is look for technical innovations to reduce carbon tax. The NDP are a little bit wishy-washy there. I don't really see what they do want to do is take away the pressure from the average Canadian, and they see it as a symbolic thing, and of course the economic forecast that the carbon tax is stifling economic growth. But I think for the average Canadian, and me included, it is supposed to incentivize you to use less carbon fuels and to switch to cleaner means.
But again,
my point here is that's not incentivizing, that's forcing.
Yeah,
you want to pay less. You want to pay less, then you get electric car. I can't get electric car because I can't afford it. Well, tough. You're going to have to pay for the fuel. How about that? We're going to just force you, right? We're going to push it on you.
And hey, if they were basically saying, what we'll do is there's an incentive for you to get an electric car. You can basically save your carbon tax, what you pay in carbon tax as a credit towards the purchase of an electric car in 2-3 years' time. All right. But they're not doing that, are they? That would make a certain amount of sense,
Yeah. And the ripple down effect of the carbon tax is anyone can go and look at meat prices, how incredible high they are. How much of that has to do with the carbon tax? We know the carbon tax is affixed to everything. The carbon tax goes on the plow, on the tractor, anything that uses fuel. Even though some of the agricultural ones are exempted, but still the truck that takes the agricultural, everything in the economy that moves fossil fuel or is heated by fossil fuel, that transference of cost comes back on you.
Yeah.
So the idea of the federal government, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say you raised the question about meat. And as you know, I don't eat meat. But when I did look at the price of meat, occasionally I do go past meat things and I have been aware of the price, and it's like what used to be, the price has doubled in many items.
Yeah, it's insane. And
meat was never cheap, right?
And groceries of all kinds have gone up, and this there's got to be an effect of the carbon tax on that. Now we find that going on everywhere in the world too, supply and demand, et cetera, and in this particular case, it's just I don't see how Singh can come up with a solution. He could take the carbon tax off the fuel of gas. Because obviously, and I'll have to repeat this, I don't want to sound like a parrot, but if you're putting up the carbon tax on fuel and you get Dave Wheeler at 30 years old, he's going to the gas station and there's not a whole lot of money coming in, and I'm driving an old clunker, but now I have to pay a lot more money to fill it up. And this is supposed to incentivize me to get an electric car or to use less fuel. Well, how's that going to happen when I go from here to there to go to work? I have to do this and that. There's nothing. I still have to drive the same amount of places all the time, and I can't afford an electric car. I can't even afford a more fuel efficient car. So how is that incentivizing me? Right?
Yeah.
All it is punishing me.
Yeah. Okay, Mike. Randy West says, if humans cannot afford to live because the cost of climate control is too high, we must give up on the bullcrap of climate change. Okay, so we use less natural gas and the price goes up. We use less hydro and the price goes up. Right? Yeah, of course. Yeah. Right. So Mike Cushman says bullet train makes more sense than electric cars. However, we don't have the infrastructure for bullet trains, Mike. Right?
I don't think I can take the bullet train to the grocery store.
And yeah, exactly that. It's a tax on everything. Plain and simple, says Randy. Absolutely, Randy. When a corporation made enough, when has a corporation made enough profit? We did not make 4 billion last year. We lost money, says Mike.
Well, we've talked about this before. One of the glaring problems that Canadian economy faces, our productivity level has gone down. Our productivity has gone down so much so that raises in wages are a threat to the economy. Believe it or not, I mean this is what an economist was talking about.
Yeah.
If you have if you produce less but your wages go up, that eventually strikes the economy badly.
But the worst of this is, of course, because of inflation, prices have gone up. So people's pay package goes less, doesn't go as far, and that's why they're looking for higher wages.
Yeah, it's
one
a
of
complete
these
circle.
Yeah, it's a vicious circle. Okay, so further. Liberals reverse course to allow fundraising to occur in private homes.
Yeah, in 2017, they decided they're not going to do that. They're not going to have fundraising in private homes. I don't know what the sort of the logic was for that, but they've made a big deal of it here. So what's happened basically is the Liberals have done dismally in their campaign fundraising. I think the Conservatives have nearly three times the amount of fundraising that the Liberals have. So the Liberals have decided, well, we have to change the rules back. Maybe we can do some more private home fundraising. The problem is, I don't know why they stopped that in the first place. It's something to do with making sure the press was there every time they had a fundraiser, to manage the photo ops and all that other stuff.
Press are not going to be there at a private function, are they?
Yeah, we're not often unless they're invited, and these are smaller. So the NDP don't have any problems with fundraising in homes, and the Conservatives don't either. For some reason, the Liberals changed the rules. Now they're going to change them back. And one of the reasons why they're changing, I think it's a bit of desperation.
Yeah,
they're going to try anything to try to match the amount of money that's coming into the Conservative coffers. If you look at the amount of money coming into the Conservative coffers, you can pretty much predict what's going to happen and compare it to the NDP and Liberal. If that maintains itself, if money talks, and it does, Conservatives will win a majority, Liberals will be second, a distant second, and NDP close to that, a third. If you were to look at the money contributions coming up.
Well, at the end of the day, how political parties raise funds, generally speaking, I've been invited to a few back in the day when I was younger. Been invited to a few fundraisers at private homes in Europe. So it goes on all the time. That's actually a large portion of how many political parties make money. They deal with things like bring and buy sales and all manners of thing like that.
Yeah, I've been in one or two because my involvement in the union. When the unions switched their affiliation from NDP to Liberal back in the 90s, because the NDP were just not effective anymore. So the major unions started to align themselves with the Liberals to see if they could extract from them, favors that unions and big businesses always do. So they so I went to a couple of these Liberal fundraisers, and they're And they're just a lot of yelling and screaming how wonderful we are and how bad they are, and they bring in, they bring in the celebrities, the people of most note in this particular case, it was the Ontario Liberals, and they bring in uh, the big blabbers, and they all just rant and rave on stage. We're so good, they're so bad, we're so good, and everybody Ray boo, like that kind of thing. But the thing is, you got to pay to get in there, and so they put on a big show about how we're the best and they're the worst, and that's it.
Yeah, and fundraisers. Well, I think political party fundraisers, you get much more. You get more kind of acceptance, more more kind of commitment when it's at the grassroots level.
Well, I went to see Broadbent a couple of times. I've seen him speak. I saw Broadbent speak, and he speaks, and he in a forum, in a different forum, in a university or whatever. I forget where I saw him speak. He spoke well, very, very well. But then went to a fundraiser, an event, NDP event, I think it was Welland, and the rhetoric is just dumb, rah, dumb. It's for they're preaching to the choir basically, and it's just rubbish talk, even from a guy like Broadbent. And he knew he just says we're the best, and we're the best, and the world's going to fall to pieces if the Liberals and the Conservatives get in. But if we get in, there's going to be the shining city on the top of the hill. And everybody, dutifully screams hooray, 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 and boo, boo. And there's a lot of stuff like, Trudeau's a criminal, or this guy's a criminal, that kind of thing from the people that are there. And
but Randy makes a good, interesting question. Fundraising in private homes thus allows the cost of the home to become an expense. Does anything after that truly matter?
I don't know. If you're having trouble paying your mortgage, you can have a few political events in your house and take, skim a little.
I don't think so. Somehow generally speaking, those people don't collect any money for hosting an event.
I don't know. It's a schmooze event where they usually throw 15 assists here, $1,500 just to meet the party celebrities, and tell everybody what they want to hear. The talking points. There's going to be no planning, no interaction or anything like that. But the basic thing is the Liberals are getting desperate. They can't fundraise like the Conservatives are doing, which is a clear indication that the country has already turned against the Liberals and the NDP. It's just a matter of time before the election comes. And I think the reason why you're not going to get a sudden non-confidence vote being successful is because both the Bloc, the NDP, and the Liberals are terrified. And the longer they can wait, the better it is.
Right. I love this comment. Peter Biker says, I can't fix the economy, but I can hit the thumbs up on this video. Good morning. Absolutely. Thanks, and we appreciate that. Okay, so you're fairly close to needing to go, but anyway, let's talk about this briefly before you go. Israel closes press bureau, Al Jazeera bureau in Ramallah. So tell us about that.
Well, Al Jazeera
about 3 a.m., didn't they?
Yeah. Now, the Al Jazeera is a press, of course. It's built on the same sort of principles as the BBC was. In fact, the BBC were the ones that were the architects of Al Jazeera. And Al Jazeera is a pretty good news service. The problem with for Israel about Al Jazeera is it takes the point of view of the average person. It takes takes the view of the Palestinian, it takes the view of the West Bank person, rather than what the West does is mostly take the view of the IDF and Israel. So this is a threat to Israel. Now, they closed down the Al Jazeera's offices in Israel because that's just a matter of censorship, really.
Yeah.
And they use the excuse that they're the mouthpiece for Hamas. Well, the West is the mouthpiece for Israel, So, I mean, it doesn't make much sense. They aren't really the mouthpiece for Hamas or Hezbollah or anything like that. As a matter of fact, the different countries, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Lebanon and Syria hate Al Jazeera most of the time because they report on the corruption and other aspects of the Islamic world that those who in power in those countries would rather not hear. But in this particular case, this is an illegal shutdown because this is the West Bank and it's under the jurisdiction, at least nominally, of the Palestinian Authority. They can shut down any press in their own country. They can censor it themselves. I guess that's not illegal in international law, but this one is particularly illegal. Well, right now, what happens is Israel has gone into the West Bank and done all kinds of brutality there, and they're being filmed and reported on by Al Jazeera. So every time they rip down a house or cut down or rip up a road or arrest a kid for throwing stones, the Al Jazeera is there with a camera. They can't have that, so they shut it down. And they wouldn't let, and they just shut everybody down in the middle of the night. They had their night crew on, and that really just stops the flow of information. And that's basically what they're saying. Now they're saying on one hand, they're the mouthpiece for Hamas and Hezbollah and all that. No, they might interview a Hamas person that the West does not want to interview. They might interview a Hezbollah person that the West doesn't want their point of view. It's just censorship, basically, and it is another indication of the depravity of the Israeli state right now, where they have a nice country called Israel, where the living is wonderful, and it has most of the benefits of a democracy, but it's an ethno-religious state. And then it has this brutal apartheid state called what the West Bank, and Gaza, which is an open air prison.
The question about like the West Bank is, of course, as you were saying before, Israel is claiming everything from the river to the sea, and the West Bank is in the way of exactly that territorial claim.
Yeah, as you've noticed that every time, well, even in Jewish or Israeli, not Jewish, but Israeli books, they don't put a border when they show Israel. They don't show a border for the West Bank or Gaza.
Yeah,
these are school kids' books, and I've seen that the other day, and basically the river to the sea. When I saw the Congress talking the other day, and they were chastising an Arab activist, Arab American activist, for things like the river to the sea, and saying, doesn't that mean that does not mean to kill all Jews and eradicate Israel? That doesn't necessarily mean that. But we have to remember that the Likud party and the Zionists have the same slogan, from the river to the sea. In fact, the Likud party, which is Benjamin Netanyahu's party, claims the West Bank and wants to make it completely a part of the Jewish state. Yeah. Now he claims otherwise. He said, I don't know what we're going to do, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of Zionists think of a greater Israel, much bigger than just the West Bank and Gaza Strip. They include right up to the Litani River in Lebanon, almost up to Damascus in Syria, and quite often when you talk to a Zionist, if you say to the river, to the sea, they say what side of the river, meaning that the other side of the river is game too. So they, among Zionists, the idea of expanding to a greater Israel is not, look, the river to the sea thing is both sides say that, but in Congress, they never said that. They never pointed that out. They only pointed the one out.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, and that has been a long-standing thing, or at least during my lifetime, it's been a long-standing thing about this statement from the river to the sea on both sides.
And make no mistake, among the more militant Palestinians, river to the sea means to get rid of the Israeli state. It doesn't mean to kill them. They say, "Oh, kill all the Jews." No, that's the religion will allow that. But they want them out because that was their land before they came 100 years ago. Before the Jews started coming 100 years ago, it was their land, of course. They want it back.
Oh, yeah.
And that ain't going to happen, of course. And then, but the Likud party is the same thing. Both now the more moderate Palestinians just mean they want their liberties between the river and the sea. They want the West Bank to become a democracy or self-determinant, and the Gaza too, without the imposition of the IDF, the apartheid
and free range and free range and access to all those areas in between as well.
Yeah, like they're trapped into these little zones and they can't use the roads and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
It really is an apartheid state. Gaza, of course, is just an open-air prison. They put a fence around it, and then they reduce the amount of food and electricity and all that other stuff going in. But,
yeah. All right. Well, you've got to kind of go, haven't you?
Yes, indeed. And in any case, without further ado, I bid you adieu. And pray for peace, everyone. Seems to be quite far away right now.
We'll end it at that situation, and we'll pick up tomorrow with Mike Cushman.